Well, hello, freedom seekers, and we're going to talk about positive changes in your health and your wellness, in your work, in your wealth, in your relationships, and sex. Now, the positive changes, any positive change that you want to make in your life that's of any significance at all, really requires a couple simple things. And the first thing is it requires some knowledge. Some knowledge or some education, some skills. Could be development, not necessarily knowledge development, but some skills, some knowledge. Because after all, it's a matter of actually learning and then applying some things to your life in order to create that change. Because otherwise, you just get stuck doing the same thing all the time. And so you need to go ahead and incorporate in any positive changes that you want to make and increasing your knowledge. One of the things that we talk about here at Non-Monogamous Lifestyles Association is your ability to live a life that you love the most. And in doing that, for a lot of us, that requires acquiring some skills and some knowledge so that we're not dependent on a job. And so there's new opportunities that are amazing opportunities being opened up here on the internet right now. It just takes a little bit of your knowledge and time to skills to learn. It can be a brand new novice and newbie at this stuff, and in a year's time you can get started and be making some pretty decent money. One of the greatest opportunities that I know of that's coming up, that I think it's going to be launched here in another month or two. It's by someone that I've had some personal business dealings with, and it's the guy that just has some genius products that he introduces. But he's going to introduce a product which is a complete, they call it a business in the box, and it's something that gives you from somebody that's a brand new novice at anything of any skill like this. And you can go ahead and jump into taking the online courses and then start your business. And that is renting websites. And so if you can imagine, if you could go out there and you could take and spend just like a small sum of money, say $500, and you could get yourself 20 rental homes. And for that $500, you get yourself 20 rental homes, and then you got 20 rental homes, and some of those rental homes are in really great locations where you're then able to collect really good rents on. Some of them aren't in as good of locations, and you don't collect as good a rent on. And but overall, with 20 rental homes, just think of the amount of money that you could make, particularly if those rental homes were free and clear. You didn't have to pay anything more, like no mortgage on them or anything like that. Well, one of the things that are coming up on the internet now is where you can create a website and then go out and rent that website. Just as an example, let's say you were to take, this is not an example that you would end up doing. That's why I'm going to use this example, but it'll get the idea across. Let's say that you were you created a website for people who've been in auto accidents that is a personal injury website. And you created this website and you were able to successfully make it. So let's say I'm here in Ventura. It was personal injury lawyer in Ventura, California. And you're able to successfully rank that site so that through the training that you'll get with this program and all, that you're able to take that website and make it so that somebody goes and puts into to Google that they need a personal injury attorney, that they'll go ahead and have your website pop up on the first page of the Google listings, and preferably even in the top 5 or top 3 of the Google listings, without having to pay the Google money every month to be able to take and advertise at the top of it or anything like that, but where you're able to get it to that position just by simply having the knowledge on how to do that. And then that website then is attracting, let's say in a city like Ventura, not a huge city or anything, but still not a real tiny small town either. But let's say you're able to attract and let's say what would be the equivalent of, let's say, 10 to 20 new clients a month. Now, 10 to 20 new clients a month in that kind of a situation, an attorney would be willing to rent that site. Even an attorney that has his own site or her own site already, they'd be willing to rent that site for an easy $5,000 a month. Now that's then where you would just rent that site to them and walk away, and you just collect the rent just like you would a rental house, except for you don't even have to do the maintenance. You don't have to pay any mortgages, any bills. You don't have situations like I had where you have squatters that end up renting your house and then destroying your house. You don't have anything like that. And so that's just one idea of the many different opportunities that are available to you today on the internet. My website there, Skinny with Benefits, is just another opportunity that's available as well. And with that opportunity is for people who, and how many Americans are, and people around the world, because with that business, we can do it anywhere in the world. And how many people anywhere in the world are there that really need a solution and to lose weight and end their struggle with losing weight? And skinnywithbenefits.com is then my solution that ended my struggle with losing weight. And that's simply by having to drink a cup of coffee every day and enjoy the process of just nice, slow, steady weight loss. And so anyway, what it all takes, though, is gaining a little bit of knowledge. In Skinny with Benefits, that's a multi-level business, and I had to gain some knowledge to do that as well. And so whether you're talking about something like my multi-level business, or you're talking about something like renting websites, or any other positive change that you want to make, it's going to take you to get a little bit of knowledge, and then you want to put that knowledge to action by applying the knowledge. Apply the knowledge, and so then the next thing is that you want to do is also you want to put yourself together a plan. So you're not just taking and using what we call a shotgun approach. That is that you're just out there taking and blasting 1,000 bullets out there, hoping that you're going to hit something, because you're just blasting them out there in a big old wide area and hoping that maybe one bullet will get one target or something. And so you got to have some knowledge. You got to apply that knowledge. You have to have a plan, and then once you have a good knowledge, a good application, and a proven plan, then the last thing you need is simply time. And so that's all you got to do then, is to give it some time. And that's the thing, is that give it time. I'm encouraging people right now to take a look at the decade that we're in and put yourself 10 years from now. And when you put yourself 10 years from now, look back on the past 10 years. Will it be the roaring decade of the 20s for you, or will it be just another 10 years? Now, in part, you can answer that by taking a look at where your current reality is right now. Make sure I get this on the screen here. But take a look at where you're at right now, and then go back 10 years. Look at where you were then. Really, how much progress have you made in your health and wellness? Has it been progress, the kind of progress that you want? Enough progress that you could look back on the last 10 years and says, "Oh, hi, man, I'm just feeling so good. I'm healthier, and I'm more able to do things than I could 10 years ago?" Or is that not the case? And the same thing with your work and your wealth. Your work, are you trapped in a job because you've got to pay a mortgage and you've got bills to pay and a family to feed, and you're just there trapped in a job? You may even love your job. You may like your job. But still, just the idea that if you want to take a vacation, or you want to take the time off, or you want to do something that you want to do, you can't just go off and do it. You've got a company that you've got to go to a boss and ask permission for. Or in my case, I've always been the boss. And being the boss, that's even a bigger responsibility, because I can't just walk away and just tell my employees, hey, the boss is going to be gone for the next month. Guys, have a good time. It doesn't work very well when you own your company. And so that's why I started to realize that I wanted to develop in my life some freedom. And so I decided I wanted to develop and create some freedom in my life. And another thing to go along with that, though, is I wanted, because, even a homeless bum has freedom, right? But no, that's not the kind of freedom that I wanted. And so I wanted some abundance. I wanted some abundance to go along with that freedom. Because, yeah, I didn't want to be homeless or a bum or, someone that just doesn't have really hardly enough to be able to scrape two nickels together, And so that's not the kind of freedom that I want. And so, I had to acquire some knowledge. And that's when I started to study and learn, because I realized that the world is shifting, and there's a shift now. I saw it coming back in the late 90s. That's the 1990s. I saw it starting to come 1998, 1999. And we had what's called the internet bubble, where there was a recession because all these companies that started going under because they really didn't have any value out there in the marketplace, but they were supposedly worth millions and hundreds of millions of dollars, and they weren't. And so that all popped and went away. But the companies that came through that were companies like Microsoft and Amazon, who have really solid, true value as companies. And so they came through that, and I knew that when we came through that in about 2002, that the internet was going to come to life. And sure enough, it came to life, and today there's so much opportunity out there created for yourself. You don't have to give up your job or anything like that, but give yourself some choices, give yourself some options, so that if you should ever want to be able to do something different, you have the choice to do that. And so that's the kind of the positive changes that we're talking about. And because of the internet as well, we're able to have a greater amount of knowledge and education on how we can live healthy and well lives. We don't have to be dependent on pharmaceuticals and medicines and so forth. There's information out there so that we can take and be more holistic in our natural healthcare process and actually be well, give the body what it needs to be well and to be healthy, instead of be dependent and have to be taking all these drugs and medications that will never make you well. They'll only make you broker and unhealthier and more dependent, so that as you look, when 10 years from now comes up, you look past, and we don't want you to be in a place where your life shrinks because of your health and your wellness. We want you to have freedom and abundance. And so that takes some knowledge. And then you have to apply the knowledge. It's one of the things that I learned with Kat, that I had the knowledge and I gave her the knowledge. But see, at first, she listened to everything I said, but she didn't really do anything with that knowledge. And so it took her about a year of me just once in a while, not harping on her or anything, but once in a while kind of talking to her about some options, some different choices that she could make for her own health care. And then she finally got on board. And I'm really glad she did, because, my ex-wife, my late wife, she didn't get on board. And that's why she's now a late wife, because she died when she was 58 years old. And so she didn't live long enough to see 60 even. And that's because she didn't listen to some of the things that I talked to her about with her health and her wellness. She died of cancer. And that was a cancer, colon cancer, very easy for her to have avoided if she just started listening to me 10 or 20 years ago. And then the other thing is with your work and your wellness. Again, apply the same process here. You're gain some knowledge. Why come home at the end of the day after work and sit down in front of the TV, or sit down in front of the game on the computer, or go to the gym, or go on a bowling with the guys, or whatever it is that you do. Take that time instead, because you only have to funnel an extra 5 to 10 hours a week. In doing that, by the end of this decade, you'll be able to look back and you'll be celebrating that it was the roaring decade for you, because it's the decade that brought you abundance and freedom. And that's what I want for you. I want you to experience and have that abundance and freedom, so that when you get to the end of this decade, you can look back on the decade and celebrate how far you have come, and that it was a great roaring 20s for you. And so that's then with your work and your wealth and your wealth. And the last thing is with your relationships and your sex. I don't know where you're at right now, but we're going to talk about here now that, see, we all have a current reality. And that current reality may mean that, you're already flying high, you're wealthy. Like I had a really good income, $20,000 to $60,000 a month for quite a few years, and And so I thought I was flying high, but yeah, I couldn't leave my business, and I was a slave to it. But so what is your current reality? What is your current reality with your health and with your wellness? Are you really well? And are you getting increasingly more well? You see, you don't have to get well overnight, because that's the last function here, time. As long as you're getting some knowledge and you're applying that knowledge and you put yourself together a plan, and then you start giving it some time, then you'll see that you'll continue to make positive changes in your life. This is what I looked at when I first became non-monogamous. My wife and I opened our marriage when I was 49 years old. And I knew that I wanted to be able to have just a great sex life. And I had the opportunity to do that for the first time in my life, because I was a virgin when I got married. And there I was, 49 years old. And for the first time in my life, I had the opportunity to really have a great sex life. But the thing is that over the period of 30 years before that, from the age of 19 to 49, I had gained 110 pounds. And many of you heard that from me before, and I was not headed in the right direction. And so at the age of 49, I didn't just suddenly change overnight. I didn't go out and get weight loss surgery and do things. It was a slow progress that I started making. Then I turned my health, my weight around, but also turned my health around. And it took some knowledge, and that knowledge has continued to develop. Like I've shared with you before, also 4 years ago, 6 years ago now, that I finally came to a place in my life where it says, no, I don't believe those chemicals that they spray on the crops these days are good for us. And so I says, I'm only going to eat organic produce, fruits, vegetables, and things that are grown, only organic produce. And so I made that switch 6 years ago. And yet it was 13 years ago that I became non-monogamous and started my journey to making some of these changes. But I kept acquiring knowledge. And so that's when I finally reached that place that after 7 years of turning my life around, I had made some good progress, but I wanted to continue having more progress and making better progress and making more positive changes in my life. And so that's then why 6 years ago, I went to eating strictly organic fruits and vegetables. And didn't think I could really afford to eat organic meat. But I drank organic milk then. I switched to organic cow's milk. So I went along that way for about 3-4 years, and then I decided it was time to make another change, and I switched to eating a whole food, organic, plant-based diet. And so that, yes, I still eat meat once in a while. At the most, maybe 10% of my food intake, my calorie intake is in a given week is meat, and more likely it's probably about 5%. And so I eat primarily a whole food, organic, plant-based diet now. But that didn't start 13 years ago when I started turning things around. But I kept gaining some knowledge, and then applying the knowledge as I gained the knowledge about it, and felt like that this is really the next step for me. Because you see, that's part of the plan then, is then you say, okay, what's the next step in my plan? My goal out there was to be well, have total wellness, so that by the time I'm 80 years old, I can be having sex that is more vigorous, that is lasting longer with more people, and have more enjoyment out of it than I did in my 30s. How do I do that when I'm 80 if my health and my wellness is going downhill? Now, I can't do that at all. And so I knew that I had to keep my health and wellness improving, not overnight, but a little bit by little bit. And so I kept acquiring knowledge and then applying the knowledge and then having a plan to go with that, and then allowing it time to work. Just like when I discovered my coffee that I drink now every day for my weight loss, and I started drinking that. And you see, I didn't then lose my weight in a week's time or a month's time even. I mean, this is now going back about 5 months ago when I got started. Let's see, October, November, December, January. Yeah, about 5 months ago when I got started on that, But you see, it's been a slow process, but it's a process that keeps me going in the right direction. And it's like I'm not having to go out there and go on crazy diets that are unhealthy for myself. I didn't have to do anything that I couldn't sustain and couldn't keep that weight off then. And so it's just slowly now going and going and going off. And so it takes time. And then same thing then with my work and my wealth, And some then that A number of years ago, the state of Washington decided to change some regulations that couldn't comply with it. I lost over $3 million and went totally broke. And at that point, I'm in my mid-50s and penniless, broke, no retirement saved up, because it was all my pension, my retirement was all tied to my company that I built. I spent 25 years building that company. And but unfortunately, I was just told that I was one of 14 companies that was going to have to take it for the team. And so I did that and lost over $3 million and lost my future, my what was I was going to be retiring on and everything. And so there I was then in my late 50s and starting over. And so I needed to then start applying that knowledge that I had been learning a little bit before then about how to take and create businesses on the internet. And so I started applying that knowledge, getting some knowledge, and then I started applying knowledge, and I had to come up with a plan. What am I going to do here, and how am I going to do it? How's it going to come together? And I wanted a proven plan. So I met with other people, like my coach. He's a millionaire. His business does like $7 million a year, and he's doing pretty good with that, And so you start talking with people and saying, okay, now I want a proven plan to be able to take and make a good amount of money, so I can have some freedom and abundance this time, and another job for myself for the next 30 years. And, how can you imagine 62 years old now and then going until I'm 92 with creating slavery for myself, where I'm a slave to my work. And so I can't imagine that. And I can't imagine that for you either. Even if you're 25 years old right now, I can't imagine that you want to take a look at the next 30 years of your life and end up realizing that you're just going to create a situation where you're just being enslaved to the job, enslaved to the paycheck, where you don't have a lot of options, because the longer you go in that job, the more stuck you feel. Because I need the benefits, I need this, I need that from the company. If you have an abundance of work and wealth that you create for yourself, you give yourself some freedom. But that takes gaining some knowledge, and then applying the knowledge and having a good proven plan, and then taking and allowing some time to allow that to work. So that's why I say, don't expect it to happen quick and overnight. There are those overnight successes, but give yourself this decade of the 20s and make it your roaring decade of the 20s. So that by the time you get to the end of this decade, you look back and you are so pumped and so excited about the roaring 20s and what it did to your life, bringing you positive changes in your health and your wellness, bringing positive change in your work and your wealth. And now let's get down to talking about your relationships and your sex. Now, in relationships, now we're not talking just about your relationships or your romantic relationships. Talking about all your relationships. You see, because as I've told you the story before, some of my relationships, when I became non-monogamous, I didn't have to change my relationships. Well, I didn't have to change my relationships because I was non-monogamous. I had to change my relationships because a lot of those relationships were buddies of mine that I had met in my years of riding motorcycle out there. And I had a lot of fun, but I realized that if I was going to continue to improve, change, turn my life around, change it and improve it, that I needed to trade my motorcycle in for a bicycle and started riding a bicycle instead. And my motorcycling buddies, I invited them to come along and join me. And when I go out on my bicycle rides, but, no one wanted to do that. And so they continued going down their path. I changed my path, and they continued going down a path to where, no, it wasn't getting healthier. It wasn't getting where they're increasing their ability. They're increasing their disability. And so for you. And so your current reality is what it is right now, but your current reality, just like your past reality 10 years ago, whatever happened 10 years ago, that does not have to define you for the rest of your life. And you can create positive changes, and that starts with figuring out what your desired reality is. What is your desired reality? What do you want with your health and your wellness? What do you want with your work and your wealth? What do you want with your relationships and your sex? But see, then in relationships, anything you really want to create in your life is going to take multiple relationships. And so sometimes, yes, you have to let your friends go in order to create and have room for the new relationships that are coming into your life. You don't have to say goodbye, I'll never see you again or talk to you again or anything like that. You still can be friends anytime you want. but we have a limited amount of time. And when I moved here to California 3 years ago, moved from Seattle, then one of the things that we realized is that Kat and I are going to be creating some new friends, some new relationships once, because we're in a new city now. It's 1,000 miles from where we were. And so what we wanted to do is we wanted to create sexy relationships this time, because we created good friendships in Seattle, but we didn't create sexy and sexual relationships. We decided that we're going to have friends that are close personal friends that we have sex with. And if we really they weren't people that we're having sex with, chances are we just really don't end up wanting to spend time with them. And then you have your personal friendships. Of course, you've got your relatives. You can't do anything about your relatives, but what you can do is you can decide how much time you're going to spend with them. It is your choice. Don't let them shame you or anything of that nature. It is your life and not theirs. And then you got your friends, you got your relatives, and you've got your professional work relationships. Professional relationships. And so all of these different relationships, you want to start creating some positive changes so that they don't keep you stuck in your current reality or even going backwards. Like if I stayed motorcycling my motorcycle life, I'd be going backwards, not forward. Yeah, I'd be having a good time doing it, but I don't want to go backwards. I'm having a better time getting on the bicycle and going forward with getting to my desired result. And so this is the thing with the relationships. Then you start attracting new relationships to your life. And then where are you with your romantic relationship? Are you living a monogamous life? Or maybe it's a pseudo-monogamous life where your partner thinks it's monogamous, but because you're cheating that it's not. Or is it an ethical and consensual non-monogamous life? And so where are you right now, and where do you want to go? You see, when I took and decided, it was 15 years ago, I decided that I wasn't willing to live the rest of my life in sexual misery, where I just really never had a good time with my wife having sex. And I can't say never, probably about 5 times a year we had a good time having sex. And that was out of maybe 100 to 150 times a year that we had sex. And so what's that? Maybe 2 or 3% of the time we had good sex, and then good sex on a scale of 1 to 10, I would say that compared to 10 being the best that I've had so far now, I'd say good sex back then was about a 3. Okay. And so I just wasn't willing to go the rest of my life living that way. And so I had to make some decisions. And yes, I knew that taking and making the positive changes that I was going to make also meant that I may end up losing my marriage. And I may end up losing my business because my wife was my business partner. If she decided to divorce me, then that could have ended the business situations as I knew it at that time as well. And so a lot could have gone on with that. But I just knew that I had to make positive changes in my life. And one of the things, I acquired some knowledge because I realized that, STIs are not God's curse against people who have sex with multiple people. And I learned some knowledge that people who have sex with multiple partners aren't perverted, awful, terrible, just terrible people. I learned they're really wonderful, decent people. And so I acquired some knowledge. And then actually the plan may even come in here before they're applying it, but I put together a plan. The first part of my plan is I got to go talk to my wife. I wasn't going to go out and cheat on her. And so I went out and talked to my wife. And yes, my wife at first, her reaction, her response, because she was like in shock. She was mortified. We had our whole church life that we grew up together with, And I was suggesting something that's so totally awful against the church. And so there she was then. When I first took and talked to her about having an open marriage, I says, well, maybe the solution for us, because we beat our head against the wall. We spent over $50,000 in trying to fix our sex problems. But we've worked hard at fixing our sex problems. So hard work doesn't always bring success. Sometimes the solution is not hard work, it's easy. And for us, then it was just opening our marriage. But at first, that meant resistance. And this is part of the things that you have when you go from your current reality to your desired reality. You will get along the way. You will get some resistance. you will get some resistance. And so we want to help you to create a community of people that are going to be there to support you. And that's one of the things that then when my wife finally came around to opening up to talking about this, well, then we spent a whole year reading books and meeting people and talking to people, her and I talking about it. We spent a year before I went ahead and actually started applying all this newness in my world of having sex with other people. And so we started to take and we had our plan where we put in place. And the plan was then, laid out. We wrote down our plan. And you should do the same thing. Don't just keep it in your head or anything. You should write it down, knowing that you can always tweak the plan. You can always take and put some other steps in there. You can always take and change the plan when you find you created a plan that just isn't working for you. Or best yet, get yourself a coach who can help you with your plan, so that, like myself, in creating a business that is online where I make millions of dollars a year, I found somebody that is doing that then I was able to hire and pay to help me to do the same thing. And so you can have a coach to help you to do that, you see. And so you want to have that plan in place, and then just give it time. And so, yes, the plan for you, if you are not having the relationship that you want, because maybe you're in a monogamous relationship and you want to open it up sexually. And so the plan for you means that the first thing you got to do is to go out and sort that out with your current partner so you can stay ethical and consensual about that. Now, that may mean it can go two ways, because there's no guarantee as to which way to go, because we are free human beings. Your partner is a free human being to do what he or she is going to do as well. And that may mean then that they are going to go off and leave the relationship. And, the thing is that if you're living in a world that is a world of scarcity and limited resources, that's what monogamy comes from, is saying, well, I'll never have another woman like this in my life, is what I thought. And so that's a scarce model instead of an abundant model. Because if you have an abundant model, then yes, I realized I came to a place. So I says, okay, I want to have an abundance of wonderful sexual relationships with other people. And that meant that if my marriage was going to come to an end, let it be. And my life will be better because I'm going in the direction of what I want in my life. And so that's why it's important for you to go ahead and know what your desired reality is. What would you like to be able to look back when you get at the end of this decade and you look back on the roaring 20s? What would you like to say about that with your health and wellness, your work and your wealth, your relationships and sex? You see, when you limit yourself and attach yourself, well, I've got to take and only have sex with this person, or I've got to have a job or a profession, because it may mean that you end up totally changing professions. Not that there's anything wrong with the profession you have now. It's probably a wonderful profession, but it may not be at the cutting edge of where our world is headed. And so when you acquire some knowledge and a new plan and apply that, it may be that it's a totally different field than you're currently in. And that's okay. That's okay. And then you say, well, what about all those years of education and training that I'm going to leave behind me? Well, they'll catch up at some point in your future, and they'll all be part of your whole plan. It's just very interesting how the universe works that way, because eventually it all comes together. And so I live in an abundant universe, and that's why I know these things. And so in your sex life, what is your sex life like now? Is it liberated, or is it restricted? Do you have to make sure that you're keeping not ruffling any feathers with any other people that are, like your spouse or your girlfriend, your boyfriend, or make sure you're not ruffling any feathers there? Like when I opened my marriage, we had a lot of rules. And that's why then when Kat and I, we started our relationship, we talked and we ended up slowly setting our rules aside. Yes, we have guidelines that we maintain for our sexual health, and so that I'm going to stay sexually healthy, and then I keep all my partners sexually healthy as well. And so those kinds of things are just smart, okay? And that becomes part of the plan. It becomes part of getting the knowledge and then applying that knowledge and having a plan that's a workable plan and allowing it time. Spoke to a gentleman, in fact, he's coming over on Monday. We're going to sit down and talk about some things, and And he is recently divorced after 25 years of marriage. And he really likes the idea of living his life going forward. His desired reality is to have an ethically and consensually non-monogamous life. So we're talking about things like, how can you go out there and have an abundance of sex with many partners and still be safe? We're talking about those things, because you don't have to let fear rule your life. That's what other people out there in the monogamous world want you have to happen for you, is that fear would rule your life so that you would stay monogamous. But that's what I call that's resistance, you see. And so but you can get rid of the resistance in your life by applying what we have. Let me just erase this here. You can get rid of the resistance in your life by first getting involved with a magnetic program. Magnetic means that there's something pulling you in that direction. So you don't have to get up and think, oh, I got to motivate myself. I just really got to get out there and I got to do these things. When you are in a magnetic program, your life is not like that at all, because you're just being pulled to your desired reality. And so then the magnetic, get into a magnetic program. And then I recommend to get involved with a magnetic mastermind. And the mastermind is a group of people that are all working on things in their life. And a magnetic mastermind is where they're working on things that they're being pulled to and not having to push themselves to. And they're not pushing away from anything. They're not pushing away from anybody. They're being drawn or pulled to the desired life that they want. And so a magnetic mastermind will create a community for yourself, because that's a very important part of this whole process as well, is creating that community so that you're not going to be constantly with that resistance. Here's your current reality. Here's your desired reality. And you move a little ways this way and then this way, but you don't ever get here, because you're in this oscillating pattern of going back and forth, a few steps forward, a few steps back, and you just never break loose and get up here to where you can actually have the life that you love the most. And that's what we want to help you to create. Now, down there in the description box, there are some links down there. Read all the information there that we put in there for you. And then there's some bonuses that'll give you some free stuff and some things to check out. But just go ahead and click down there into that description box. Also, a couple other things to do is to make a comment and tell me what you think of the information I gave you today. And if you are not currently subscribed, then subscribe to my channel and give this video a like. And sure, please ask your questions down below. And so I'm signing off. I'm Non-Monogamous Mark. I'm the co-founder of Non-Monogamous Lifestyles Association. And I want to help you to create a life that you love, so that by the end of this decade, it's the roaring 20s, where you've had the best years of your life in health and wellness, work and wealth, because we all need meaningful work. It gives us really a lot of value in our lives. And so work and wellness, and then your relationships and sex, I want it to be so good. The relationships, all your relationships, not just romantic, but all of your relationships. Again, by using the magnetic mastermind group, these are a group of people that are going to help you to get to that desired result. Where most of the people that we currently have in our relationships right now, they keep us at our current reality. That's not what you want. You want people that are going to help you to be able to get to your desired reality, so that you can create the life that you love the most. So thanks a lot. Enjoy the rest of your evening.